Welcome back to my channel. Of course, the Eagles are playing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl once again, and in today's video, I will be breaking down what was better, the 2024 Eagles defense or the 2022 Eagles defense. Of course, as we all remember, these are two very good, two historic defenses of the Eagles, and there's a lot of similarities, and even though it's just 2 years apart, there's actually a lot of differences. Starting off, I'll just kind of go over the stats for the teams before I get down into the nitty-gritty, into the specific players that have changed, the coaches that have changed, of course, all of that. This year's Eagles defense has allowed 17.8 points per game. The 2022 Eagles defense allowed 20.2, so a good bit more. As far as rushing yards and passing yards, the Eagles defense in 2024 is better in both of those. It's a little surprising to be better in both rushing and passing, but they've managed to do so. One thing that the 2024 defense was much better at was getting sacks, disrupting plays in the backfield. They had 70 sacks on the year. This year, the Eagles only have 41, so it's almost twice as many. That's a crazy difference, and I wouldn't be surprised if someone says the Eagles 2022 defense is better just because of that. And what is even more impactful than a sack, but of course a turnover, because, well, that's the ultimate success for a defense. So in 2022, the Eagles had 17 interceptions and 10 fumble recoveries. In 2024, the Eagles have 13 of each. And it is of note, the Eagles have really turned up their turnover game in the last month or two of this season, and in the playoffs. It's been pretty crazy. Some people say turnover luck. I don't know if that's true or not. We'll see if it continues in the Super Bowl. Hopefully it does. So as you can tell, these are two really good defenses. These are two defenses that were some of the best in the NFL. But by most of the stats, this year's defense is a better defense. I mean, they allowed way less points. That's enough for most people to decide. But I can break down a little bit further just to show how dominant this year's defense has been. In 2024, the Eagles defense is number one in points per game, yards per game, and yards per play. It's pretty impressive to be number one in all those three things. And it's not just their rushing defense or their passing defense. They're both phenomenal. They are number 8 in the NFL in rushing defense, and they are number 2 in the NFL in passing defense. And the passing defense is even more impressive because the Eagles have been up on a lot of these teams, so they would be wanting to throw the ball. And then my final statistic before I get into the player-by-player breakdown is takeaways per game. Of course, this is huge, and the Eagles this year are number 3 in the NFL with 1.8 turnovers per game. So these were really great stats and everything. But of course, these teams played different schedules, so you kind of had to break it down player by player, position by position, coach by coach, if you really want to see who was better. If you liked the video so far, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing to my channel. But back to the video. Starting off with the defensive line. This was the 2022 strength, one of the best defensive lines ever, getting 70 sacks, an insane amount. I mean, as I said earlier, almost doubling up this year's team. It was two absolutely dominant defensive linemen, and then two really good and good backups as well. The best player on that line was, of course, Fletcher, a Hall of Fame defensive tackle, followed up by Haason Reddick, who was an all-pro level edge rusher. He got 16 or 17 sacks that year, and quite honestly, the Eagles in 2024 don't have anyone who can compare to that. You look at the two best edge rushers and defensive tackle for the Eagles this year. It's Jaylen Carter and probably Josh Sweat, maybe Nolan Smith at the end of the year, but let's say Josh Sweat for the entire year. While Carter has been dominant, he has been all-pro worthy, he has been one of the best in the NFL, he has not been as good as Fletcher Cox was. So I think everyone's going to agree with that. And this is not to mention even Javon Hargrave, the second defensive tackle for the Eagles in 2022, is a lot better than Jordan Davis or Milton Williams. I like both of them, well, especially Milton Williams, not so much Davis. But Hargrave was undoubtedly the better player. He was excellent for us. Josh Sweat this year to in 2022. He's probably better in 2022. Honestly, he's probably roughly the same. And then Nolan Smith versus Hassan Reddick. It's not close. But if you're a 2022 fan, this may be where it all goes bad, because pretty much the rest of the defense, or a lot of the rest of the defense, was better in 2024. Starting with linebackers, Zach Baun, Oren Burks, phenomenal linebackers. Just phenomenal. I know TJ Edwards was on the team in 2022, and he's a very good player. And White was the other linebacker, and he was good as well. But they are not on the level of Zach Baun, Oren Burks, the backup, or I'm not even including Nakobe Dean because he's hurt for the Super Bowl. But when you're comparing Zach Baun, a potential defensive player of the year, to TJ Edwards, it's not even close, and we can only hope that the Eagles re-sign him next year. Then when we get to the corners, Darius Slay versus Darius Slay, this is a tough one. I'm of course going to have to give him the edge in 2022 when he was not an ancient corner that he is today. So that's one upside. James Bradbury was the second team All-Pro in 2022. Quinion Mitchell, of course, is a rookie, not a second team All-Pro. So if you just look at that stats, you say, hey, it was better in 2022. But a lot of teams in 2022 said they thought they could pick on James Bradbury if their offensive line would hold up, and in the Super Bowl, it was proven to be true. Honestly, he had an excellent year, but it was kind of lucky, and I would take Quinion Mitchell all day, every day over Bradbury when you're comparing these 2 years. And I think most of us fans would too, partially because Bradbury did cost us a Super Bowl, but I maybe can forgive him for that, but probably not. As far as the third corner, the slot corner, Avonte Maddox in 2022 is very good. Cooper DeJean in 2024 is outstanding, probably the best in the NFL in my opinion. He has revolutionized this defense, and it has changed completely ever since he has moved onto the field. That's when we really became a number one defense in the NFL. As far as safeties, CJ Gardner-Johnson is it in both, and most of the people I've heard talking about it, and kind of what I've seen as well, is that he's played better this year than he did in 2022. So I'll give him the edge this year. And Reed Blankenship, Marcus Epps, I'm a big Reed Blankenship fan. I probably like him more than he should, and I don't know how much is because I just like the exciting whites in the backfield. I think it's funny. But nevertheless, I do have to give Reed Blankenship the edge over Marcus Epps, who's a fine player, but he's nothing special. Then finally, the coaches. Johnathon Gannon versus Vic Fangio is probably the two where it's the biggest blowout, because Vic Fangio is an excellent longtime defensive coordinator who's a master, and Johnathon Gannon was he was okay. The defense got 70 sacks, but did he really do anything for that? They kind of did that on their own. I don't think he was actually that good. I think he's an average defensive coordinator, versus Vic Fangio is top 5 in the NFL. So no question there. All in all, I believe this Eagles defense 2024, the current year Eagles defense, has better coaching and a better overall roster, as well as better stats. So pretty clearly, I think this is the best Eagles defense they've had in a few decades at least. But anyways, what are your thoughts? Leave them down in the comment section down below. Like, comment, subscribe. Might have said that before, but oh well. Thanks for watching.